Today somebody asked me why people become Buddhist monks, and that's not really a question I could answer easily, because obviously there are a lot of Buddhist monks in the world and everyone has their own story and reasons. We know the Buddha's life story. Why did the Buddha become a monk? And because he had an inkling that life is not all pleasurable and easy, which is surprising because he was born into a very wealthy, powerful family in India all those years ago. But still he had insight, recognizing that human beings still, however fortunate you are, however wealthy you are, however good your life situation is, you still have to face some of the basic realities of life, that having been born into a human body, we're subject to aging, sickness, death, and we have to face the separation from all that we love and like. So if our loved ones die, there's a lot of grief there. And then, of course, when we face our own death, we have the grief of separating from all we love and like. So that's the Buddhist reason, and I think many Buddhist monks and nuns will have at least some of that in the background that led them to become a monk or a nun. Some maybe just reading and thinking about life and recognizing that life is bound up with some uncertainty, and maybe looking for a certainty, looking for some kind of certain happiness, brings us at the very beginning maybe just to practice Buddhism, learn meditation, listen to teachings, practice dana, generosity, and so on, because of questions about what is the purpose of life, what is real happiness. It was those kind of questions that brought me to become a Buddhist monk. Sometimes people assume that you must have been through some kind of crisis before becoming a monk. So often they ask you, "Oh, did you have a broken heart?" Or did you have some serious illness or some terrible thing happen to you that led you to become a monk? I actually don't think that's that common a story. It does happen. But for myself, and I know for many friends as well, mainly it's questions, just questions about life. For myself, when I was a young man, like maybe 16, 17 years old, I asked questions like, what is the purpose of life? Often these questions sound like cliches, but still I had them, and I think they're valid questions. Why are we here? What's it all about? What's the meaning of life? What is the happiness in the world? What happiness can we expect or experience as human beings? And I was fortunate. When I was 16, I saw the monk who eventually became my teacher, Lumpur Cha, on TV. In the video that you can see nowadays, you can see it on YouTube, The Mindful Way, and the second one, The Buddha Comes to Sussex. So just seeing Lumpur Cha, I didn't know much about Thai Buddhism at that time, but I was already reading books about Buddhism. And just seeing a living teacher who would seem very wise, tuned in, very peaceful monk, gave me a little bit of confidence that there are people still practicing the Buddhist path in the world. Because I was brought up in London, a city not so different from Singapore, a city where you don't immediately see Buddhist monks or think much about spirituality perhaps. You're surrounded by people mainly just earning a living, maybe enjoying simple pleasures of life, but not a lot of spirituality immediately obvious or available. But I had these questions, and I was reading books, and the Buddhist books I read, and the Buddhist teachings that I read gave me the best answers at that time. But I had a doubt, like many people. I thought Buddhism was probably an ancient teaching, an ancient religion that is no longer really practiced in the way that it was in the time of the Buddha. So I was wondering, can anybody still get enlightened in this day and age? Because I was reading about Nibbana, enlightenment. What is Nibbana? What is happiness in terms of the way the Buddha described? And he described the highest happiness as Nibbana, and where one practices to the point that one frees the mind from greed, anger, and delusion, experience what we call the deathless or the unconditioned. I was wondering, is that something people can still achieve in this day and age, in this world, with all its material wealth, but the accompanying confusions and attachments and problems that brings? I had some doubts, but seeing Ajahn Chah on TV at least gave me a sense that, maybe there are still people practicing what the Buddha taught in the world. So that was my good fortune. Although it took me a few more years before I actually traveled to Thailand to stay in a monastery, stay with Ajahn Chah. But over those few years I was investigating, practicing Buddhism more deeply, not just reading the books, but I started learning to meditate and thought a bit about keeping precepts, personal discipline, changing my lifestyle a little bit as I practiced more and more. One of the other sort of what we call Devadutas, these heavenly messengers who are often popping up in people's own spiritual practice. So for the Buddha, he was seeing sick people, aged people, dying people, seeing a monk. I saw Ajahn Chah on TV, so that was one Devaduta, like a heavenly messenger saying, well, there are monks still in the world, there are people still practicing what the Buddha taught in the world. That gave me some confidence, which is what Devadutas do. They give you a message saying, this is doable, you can practice what the Buddha taught, it's still meaningful, it's still relevant, you might say. Another one of these Devadutas was seeing a man meditate every day when I was traveling through Europe. Part of my personal quest, spiritual quest, I went traveling through Europe and then into Africa when I was a teenager, and just by chance I was traveling on one of those cheap buses through Europe, from London through Europe, because I didn't really want to travel in Europe. I wanted to get to Africa at that time. That was what I wanted to do. But on this bus, one of the passengers was a meditator. I didn't know him, but I saw him meditate every day, and the bus would drive for many hours, but we would stop every few hours for refreshment break, toilet break, and most people would go off and eat food, shopping, talking, walking around, but this person would go and sit under a tree and meditate. In a very disciplined way. When he meditated, he sat still for maybe 30 minutes at a time, perhaps longer, and when he sat, he looked very serene, very peaceful, and he did this several times a day. And he just did it on his own, and obviously no one was forcing him to do this. And it made me think, if you're disciplined, you can meditate. You can train yourself even in an ordinary situation like traveling on a bus through Europe. You can still meditate if you're inclined to. Because before that, I had tried a bit of meditation and I found it hard because my legs hurt, sitting on the ground cross-legged. My mind wasn't yet that peaceful. So I had some faith, but I was finding it difficult, and I didn't yet have the discipline because I didn't realize as a human being you could be disciplined. I was young, inexperienced. But seeing this man was a great inspiration to me. He was what we call a Devadutta. He was somebody saying, oh, you can practice meditation every day, even if you're traveling. And I thought it through, and I thought, well, if you had that level of discipline, you could meditate when you're at work, you could meditate when you're studying, you could meditate, in many different walks of life, and just bring your meditation into your daily routine. So seeing that man, I didn't really talk to him, I just had a brief conversation with him, but just seeing him was enough to inspire me in my own practice. And I thought, if he can do it, then I can do it. I didn't know absolutely that I could meditate and follow the Buddhist path, but I had an idea, well, if someone else can do it, that probably means I can do it. And we need these, what we call Devaduttas, these heavenly messengers in our life. Another word for them, or another aspect of them, is what we call Kalyana Mitta, good friends or true friends, noble friends. We need noble friends in life because, especially in the beginning of our practice, we don't yet know what we're doing. We're not fully confident that we understand what the Buddha taught, how to apply it, how to bring it into our daily life. But if you have good friends who do, and it could be Dhamma teachers, both Sangha and lay people, but also Dhamma friends, people who maybe practiced ahead of you and know how to meditate, know how to keep precepts. They practice some generosity, charity in their daily life. They can be Dhamma friends too. And this is an important part of our practice, just getting these inputs, these good inputs, by associating with people who practice the Dhamma. Just like we're here tonight. A large group of people come together. You may not all know each other, and I don't know all of you. There's a few familiar faces here, but not all. But we help each other in this way, helping each other in a way that's very simple and direct. If one person meditates, another person sees them, that person may meditate. As the Buddha said, if one person practices mindfulness, and then somebody living with them, working with them, or associating with them will get a good influence from that person. And they will boost your mindfulness. So if you associate with other mindful people, or people trying to bring up mindfulness, that will help your mindfulness. So this is an important part of our practice, being Kalyana Mitta and Devaduttas to each other, helping each other through the practice, through being an example. And that could be parents practicing for their children to see. It can be siblings, it can be friends, it can be friends who decide to keep the precepts and provide that kind of example to other friends. It could even be work colleagues. You could be brave enough to tell other people that you meditate, because some people are so shy they don't even want to admit it or say it. But if you are a meditator, maybe you can tell your friends you meditate. You might find somebody's interested or inspired by that. So this is one part of our practice, and for me that was helpful to meet somebody who meditated, to see Ajahn Chah on the TV. For me they were moments that inspired me and encouraged me in my own practice. And eventually I travelled and went to Thailand when I was a student, because I was looking for a teacher and a place to practice, and I hadn't found one in England, even though Luang Por Sumedho had already travelled to England and started a monastery. I didn't know about it. You have to remember, this is pre-internet days. The world was a slightly more limited place. It wasn't so easy to find out information. So I hadn't really found any Buddhist teachers. I found one or two, but no place to practice in the UK. So I went to Thailand when I was a student. And again, I was really fortunate. I was just walking along the street on my first day in Bangkok, and it wasn't a very wholesome street. It's the red light district in Bangkok, where people go for pleasure rather than meditation. But I saw a little sticker on the lamppost that said meditation classes in English. I said, yes, that's what I need. And I went straight to the temple where they were being held. It's called Wat Bawon, which is one of the big old royal temples in Bangkok. And there was an Australian monk there who taught meditation in English every day. Run a session, sitting meditation, walking meditation. So I joined that and I said, yes, this is what I want. And I would practice that every day. And he taught me how to do walking meditation, which I'd never done before. I'd only done sitting meditation, and I was struggling with that because my legs really hurt. It really hurt. It was agony for me. Guess that's just my karma. My body, it was never been very supple. Never found it easy to sit on the ground cross-legged. But I was pursuing it, but it was making my meditation more a meditation about being with pain than actually with peace. I had effort. I put effort into my meditation, but the pain in my legs would always pull my attention away from the breath. So I had to just learn to be very patient with my own painful feelings and then the kind of mind states that they generated. But I had some faith and I kept doing it. But when this monk in Bangkok taught me how to do walking meditation, I found it really helpful because I'd never done that before. And he taught me how to recite the word Buddho from Buddha, which is the method that many of the forest monks use, recitation of the word, meditation word Buddho, and walking back and forth. And we were really lucky. We had a big hall, bigger than this, with aircon, so like this room in Bangkok. The abbot of the monastery was very supportive of teaching foreigners to meditate. So he gave us this beautiful room with nice carpet, aircon, and I started doing walking meditation back and forth the very first day that I learned to do it. And the monk said, just do this for 30 minutes and then we'll come back to another room and we'll do our sitting meditation. And there's a few people walking meditation together. And everybody else followed his instructions and walked off. I forgot the time completely. So after 1 hour, he came and tapped me on the shoulder and said, do you know the time is up? And he led me back to the room where we did the sitting meditation. But I was so peaceful doing this walking meditation for the first time in my life that I felt like I was walking on the clouds or on cotton wool or something. My body was very light. I didn't feel tired, I didn't feel hot, and I was just reciting Buddho, following the feeling of my feet touching the ground. So I was very happy, and that happiness and the peace from the walking meditation carried on when I sat in meditation, and for the first time the pain in my legs disappeared. So I thought, oh, this is good. It gave me some confidence that, even painful legs, the pain can subside when your mind becomes more concentrated, your mindfulness improves. So after that, it was like I now have you might call it a Dhamma weapon. We usually think of weapons as things to hurt other people, but a Dhamma weapon is a weapon to cut through some of the obstacles to your practice and improve your state of mind. So Dhamma weapons can be mindfulness, can be wisdom and understanding, could be the weapon of patience. There's many different Dhamma weapons we use. I found walking meditation improved my mindfulness, improved my understanding and my patience, and my effort improved as well. So when I finished that session of sitting meditation, we had a talk, a discussion, and I went home. Normally I wanted to get a bus home, home. Home was a hotel, which is quite a long way away from the temple. But I thought, I'm not going to get a bus, I'll just do my walking meditation. So I spent my first day walking meditation through the streets of Bangkok, which are much busier than Singapore. The traffic is worse, the air is more polluted, there's more noise, lots of nice aromas from the food stalls. So a lot more distraction even than Singapore. But I wasn't bothered by anything. I didn't plan this, but I was just walking mindfully back to my hotel. It took maybe an hour. But I was very happy doing it, and I wasn't distracted by anything. So that gave me a real boost to my confidence and the thought, meditation can really work. It can really bring you some peace. It can improve your state of mind, the qualities in your mind. Of course, subsequently, it wasn't always as peaceful as that, doing walking meditation, but nevertheless, I found the combination of sitting and walking meditation started to overall my level of mindfulness, concentration, and then understanding improve. So I went to that monastery every day for about 2 weeks until the monk said, it's time for you to go and find a teacher outside Bangkok. This is no long-term solution to your Dhamma practice. So he sent me off to Ajahn Chah. When I went to stay with Ajahn Chah, I went to see Ajahn Chah, and then I went to stay at Wat Pananachat, which is the monastery set up for foreign monks. It's about 8 kilometers away from where Ajahn Chah lived. And I walked in there and I joined the community and said I want to start training. I was still a student, but I had a long holiday. I had about 3 months available. So I wanted to commit that time to practicing in the monastery, keeping 8 precepts, shave my head, wear white, as what we call an anagarika, a homeless one. So at least temporarily I left home. And I thought, if I can live here, then I probably can become a Buddhist monk. Well, my main doubts were not about the Buddhist teachings or the Buddha or Ajahn Chah or the method of practice or anything. It was mainly about myself, whether I had enough stamina, enough determination, enough of the qualities I would need to be a monk. I had that doubt in my mind. So I thought it through and I thought, well, I have 3 main doubts. One is, can I survive on 1 meal a day? Because that's what monks survive on. I wasn't worried about the kind of food. The food they had there in those days was quite simple village food, northeast Thai, sticky rice, and a few other things every day. But I wasn't worried about the kind of food, but just the fact that living on 1 meal a day, how that would affect my health, my well-being. Second one was, they got up every morning at 3 a.m. a wake-up bell, and it's compulsory. You have to get up and come to the meditation hall and meditate until dawn every day. So I had a doubt, can I do that? I'm sure I could do it once or twice, but could I do that regularly? And the last doubt I had was, would I be able to complete the all-night meditation, which Ajahn Chah set up for the monks? Every week, once a week, they would meditate all night long. It's on the lunar observance days, so the full moon, new moon, half moon days, so it's 4 days a month. The community comes together with the lay community, so people like yourselves. So I don't know, tonight, are you ready to stay up all night? But in northeast Thailand they do. Well, they certainly did in those days. They come together, 7 p.m, start meditating and then chanting, and there's Dhamma teaching as well. So it's a number of different activities. But from maybe 10, 11 o'clock onwards, you would meditate until 4 a.m, when it's the time for the morning chanting. And then you finish morning chanting by about 5. And then a lot of the people who stayed overnight go home. Some go to work even, some go to rest, and the monks have to go out on alms round. So that was my last doubt. Could I cope with that regularly, staying up, meditating all night? Because again, I had my problem with my legs. It hurt when I sat, and that's just sitting for maybe half an hour or 1 hour. Would I be able to sit up all night? And so about I think it was the third day I was in Wat Panana Chat, happened to be the observance day, and we had to stay up all night. So the chanting, I knew a little bit of the chanting, but the translation was in Thai, which I didn't understand. And then the Dhamma talk was in Thai, which I didn't understand. The highlight of the night was a cup of cocoa, sweet cocoa. I think there may have been coffee in it as well, although we didn't get coffee every time in those days. And then the rest of the night was going to be meditation. And, you're allowed to go to the toilet, but that's it. You can't go back to your hut and sleep. You just got to stay in the hall. And if you can't sit, you have to walk. And I knew I could walk, so that was my escape route. I thought, well, if I can't sit, I'll have to walk. So I could sit for maybe a half an hour, till 10 p.m. or afterwards. And then I just started walking because there was far too much pain in my legs to keep sitting. So I walked for the rest of the night till 4 a.m. It was hard work, but I did it. Perhaps I had some peace, and then I also had a lot of different thoughts coming through my mind and probably some sleepiness as well. But I completed that and completed the morning chanting. So I thought, well, I've done it. I've lived here for 3 days, 1 meal a day, getting up at 3 a.m. And then this time I've stayed up all night. I had one last doubt, and that was, if I was a monk, I would also have to go out on alms round into the village, which can be, several kilometers of walk, barefoot, on an empty stomach, after staying up all night. Could I do that? So I thought, this is like the main doubt, but the main kind of barrier to me becoming a monk now. It's all come down to this one simple thing. Can I go out on alms round after being up all night? So I followed the monks out. I thought I better check out myself whether I can do it or not. And I followed them, and it was really painful on my feet, because in those days the roads were all gravel. They weren't concrete or bitumen. It's horrible little chippings under your feet, and you go barefoot, and it's like, every step is agony. So I was from London with soft London feet. You wear shoes, never go barefoot, or occasionally, but not much. So I walked out on alms round barefoot, following the monks, and I came back after several kilometers, or maybe after an hour, came back to the monastery gate, and I thought, I've done it. I completed everything that I had a doubt about. That means I should be able to be a Buddhist monk. And as I thought that, just walking through the gate, this wave of kind of rapture, joy came up. All the tiredness from staying up all night disappeared. My body and mind felt very light, very, very happy. So I thought, good decision, because I decided I'm going to become a Buddhist monk. And the joy indicated it's probably a good decision. So I walked in very happy. So after that, I didn't really have any more doubts. I certainly had some challenges, because being a Buddhist monk brings up all kinds of challenges, because you're celibate, no girlfriend, no money, 1 meal a day, no property, no possessions. In those days, there wasn't even any communication. Once in a while, I'd get an aerogram from my family in England. There's no phone call, no internet, nothing like that. So a bit like being a prisoner of war in the jungle or something. You're just left there meditating, practicing. But still, I had a certain amount of joy coming from my practice that balanced my mind when I had to encounter the difficulties. But after that point, that first period where I had the initial doubts, that was it. I was happy to be a monk. At that point I was a trainee, and later I committed to the training and became a monk at Ajahn Chah's monastery, and I carried on practicing from then until now. And now I live in Australia, and there's also challenges living as a monk in Australia. It's a lot colder than Thailand, where we are, because we're in the mountains of Victoria, which everyone doesn't realize they're actually quite cold. You can get snow on the mountain. The other day we took some Thai monks up the mountain who have never seen snow before. They've come to live with us, and they were so fascinated by snow, they picked it up. One of them couldn't resist, he even tasted it. He said, oh, it's just like ice out of a fridge. That's what snow is, isn't it? It's just ice, just cold water. But it's quite cold there. That's one challenge. And the weather, is a bit unpredictable, stormy sometimes. In the summer it can be very hot as well. And we have bushfires. All kinds of very ordinary kind of challenges, which are nothing, that extreme. But myself as a monk, well, obviously I've changed. So, the first time you become a monk, you have all these doubts. Can I do it? Where will it lead me? What's going to arise? Is it really going to give me some happiness or enjoyment? But coming to this point, I can answer with confidence, yes, it does. This Buddhist practice works. It does bring you many, many sources of happiness on many levels. More than I could describe tonight, but maybe one level is just the appreciation of the goodness in yourself, because it draws out your own goodness, and then the goodness in your fellow monks and monastics, because you're living with people who keep a very disciplined level of morality. They have a high level of integrity. They meditate, they learn the Dhamma, they teach, they help people. So living with fellow monastics, you see a lot of good things every day. Then you have the lay community who support the monastics. Wherever you are in the world as a Buddhist monk, people come forward and offer you food and lifts and other kinds of support. So you're constantly seeing people's goodness. So you think about it, that's a bit different from most people's experience of life, especially if you watch a lot of news. You watch a lot of news in the world, you're always seeing the problems of the world and the suffering of the world, aren't you? And Buddhist monks, occasionally we see the news, and certainly we talk to people about their suffering. So you don't ignore it, but you also see the good side of people. So that's one uplifting thing that brings you a certain amount of joy, appreciating the good in yourself, the good in the people around you, and regularly, every day really, you're seeing people do many good things. If you're a Buddhist monk, every day you'll meet people who want to offer food to Buddhist monks. It could be just a spoonful of rice, or a whole dish, or set of dishes. People do that every day. They're happy to support Buddhist monks. They support them with medicines, and they give lifts to monks when they need a lift. They offer robes or material to make robes, all kinds of things. You're seeing that every day. It can be just a small act of kindness, or sometimes very major sacrifices people do to support the religion. But you're witnessing that, which is a very beautiful thing, and it uplifts your mind. It's a source of happiness. You're also witnessing the effort people put into their practice, both monastics and lay people. So people who are determined to keep the 5 precepts, say, or the 8 precepts, or the precepts of a monastic, a monk or a nun, in a world that doesn't really support that, does it? You go out there into the world, there's nobody encouraging you to keep the 5 precepts. It's something you have to decide to do, you have to want to do, and you maybe have to be quite determined, because there'll be lots of people encouraging you not to keep the precepts. Taking you out for a drink, lying to you, being aggressive to you, or whatever. There is quite a bit of that in the world that takes or challenges your attempts to keep precepts. But when you meet people or see people who keep precepts, it's very uplifting. You get a good example, and you say, oh, they're very impressive that they can do that. when they may be surrounded by people who are not particularly interested in precepts. Or like the man who I saw meditating on the bus, knowing people who meditate every day or almost every day of their life, and sometimes do a lot of meditation. It's very inspiring to see that. And there are people who do that. They commit their lives to learning how to meditate. They incorporate that into their daily routine. Maybe do chanting or study or listen to Dhamma talks as well. There are those people who do that. And so when you see them, it's inspiring because you're seeing human beings can practice the Dhamma. And in this day and age, with technology, maybe actually it's easier to meet or see the fruits of people's Dhamma practice because we've got technology that shows us. There's videos, there's audio, there's all kinds of digital technology that is showing us other people the fruits of their practice. And then there's the ability to travel. So I can fly here from Australia to talk to you about Dhamma practice, and I can see you practicing, and communication through travel, planes, air travel, cars, rail, whatever. It's much easier to move around now, so that's a useful thing. There's more books, there's more things around to help spread the Dhamma and also show us the fruits of people's practice. There's probably more Buddhist temples and monasteries and centers around the world as well, and in places that we probably never thought there would be Buddhist monasteries in Africa or South America, or all kinds of countries that you've heard of, but you never assumed there would be Buddhist monks or nuns practicing in those places. So in this day and age, actually, if you look, you keep your eyes open, your ears open, there's actually many, many good things going on in the world. And obviously not just Buddhists, of course, many other people who are not Buddhists or maybe have no religion or they are from another religion, they're doing good things as well. It's all out there. And what we have to do is keep our eyes open, isn't it, and start looking for it. Because one of the problems with the modern age is that we've all become perfectionists, and we've all become easily angered by seeing what's wrong with the world. And we all often have very high ideals how we expect the world to be, even though the world is improving all the time. We actually are very critical of each other, ourselves, other people, the world around us. And it makes us very unhappy. So, the world has become a much wealthier place, say, over the last 50 years. Economies have grown. People have more money, more technology. Everyone has a phone. Lots of people have cars. Sure, there's still poverty in the world. There's still many problems. But generally, the level of standard of living of the whole world has improved. Medical facilities, every country in the world have improved. Education is improving. There's still much more to do, of course. I'm not saying that it's all good now, but what we tend to do is still find fault with everything. modern kind of illness, you could call it, really, is the fault-finding mind. We all complain. We're all good at saying what's wrong with our job, with our life, with our country, with our government, with our economy, with this, with that, with ourselves. We're very good at that. So as the world is becoming materially more wealthy, we're actually complaining more, finding fault with what we've got more. We're more discontent, dissatisfied with things. Which, if you pause and think about it, that's a bit strange, isn't it? Why should it be like that? People 100 years ago were struggling. There's so much poverty, starvation, disease, wars. Everyone thinks nowadays there's wars, and how terrible wars are, because now we can see them on video. which is of course a terrible thing, but there's less wars and less killing now than there was 100 years ago, 200 years ago. So statistics are sometimes needed. We have to remind ourselves people are actually, in many respects, better off socially, economically, maybe spiritually, maybe not, than before. But we tend to miss it all, don't we? Because we tend to focus on what's wrong with ourselves, our lives, because we've all become perfectionists, and when things are not perfect, we don't like it. We complain. This is something Buddhism can offer to the world, getting us to be more in touch with reality and seeing maybe some of the negative habits we pick up. Monks aren't immune from this. I'm British, so I'm great at complaining. I went to live in Australia, and in Australia they call us whinging Poms. I've had to train myself not to complain, because I can see it's not good for me when I'm caught into endless complaining, negativity, criticizing things around me or myself. And it's not good for other people, isn't it? If we complain, always complain, and we look at our life and the life around us in a negative light, it doesn't generate happiness, it generates unhappiness quite easily, quite directly. So my teacher, Ajahn Chah, he had one reflection that we use quite a lot to help deal with this. It's the reflection on it's good enough. And then people will say, oh, well, if you're always going around saying it's good enough, how do we make any changes to the world? And back to the fault-finding mind, it says the things need to be improved. Well, yeah, of course they do. We can always improve. But as you improve, do you want to improve your world, your life and the lives of people around you from a place where you're constantly finding fault with things, or from a place where you have a sense of well-being, contentment, which is what comes with this reflection? It's good enough. And what are you doing when you meditate? You're trying to find some inner balance and peace by training your mind in mindfulness, using a meditation object such as the breath. Brings you to this sense where you experience it's good enough. Your mind, you may have a past that is full of all kinds of mistakes and problems you've made and things that went wrong. Okay, but when you're meditating, you're setting aside the past. You may have grave doubts about the future and worries and anxiety about what's going to happen in your life or the world. But when you're meditating on the breath, it's just one breath in, one breath out. That's all you need to be aware of. It's good enough, isn't it? It's good enough to be with the breath in that moment when you're meditating. You can set aside the future, you can set aside the past, and just be with this state of mind that's content in the present moment, and say, it's good enough. And that isn't to say that you then go to sleep or stop doing anything, but when you start looking into what you can improve in yourself or in the world around you, you're coming from a place of peace, calm, which is the best way for the mind to be creative and to solve problems and understand the world, isn't it? If you're coming from a place of peace. And this is why meditation can really help us in our lives, and not just in Buddhist practice or spirituality, but in education or work or sport or any walk of life, any aspect of life. Cooking, if you practice mindfulness, your cooking will improve. You'll make food better because you'll pay more attention to what you're doing, and you'll have less irritation and stress, and you won't complain so much while you're doing it because you're practicing mindfulness. Or if you're driving your car with mindfulness, you'll get less angry with other drivers. So you'll drive better. You'll be a better driver on the world. Or whatever aspect of life you're looking at. The kind of qualities you're developing in meditation and this sense of contentment and it's good enough is a really valuable reflection, and it's an experience as well. It's not just an ideal, it's also an experience, a feeling of calm well-being that comes from your meditation. you can use that, take that into other things in your life, the way you relate to the people around you, the way you face problems such as getting ill, or when you have sudden changes in your life, unexpected changes, people you love die, or you lose your job, or there's some change in your workplace, or there's some tension with another person at work. All kinds of challenges. What is the best way to deal with them? Well, first of all, learn to how to bring up a sense of it's good enough in your own mind. Bring out a sense of mindfulness, calm, peace. So then you can look at whatever problem or thing you're facing and look at it from a place of calm and peace. So your mind can think things through better or understand things better. Many people say when they get their clearest insights or understanding into their own life or into aspects of the world around them, it's because it's at a time when they're very peaceful. Your mind works better, doesn't it? It can think better, it can apply itself, pay attention to a problem, solve a problem, or just understand something better when it's at peace. Right, at this time of year, I think in Singapore, same as Australia, a lot of the young people are doing exams. And regularly kids come to me and say, oh, how can I do my exam? And I'm getting so stressed by it, I'm nervous, I'm worried. And I say, well, just practice a few moments of mindfulness, before your exam or even during your exam. You're stressed because you've got a question you can't answer, or you're doubting yourself, or am I going to be able to complete this? Have I got the right answer? Or just take a few moments, take a few deep breaths, calm yourself down, bring your attention to the present moment. You still have this exam in front of you that you have to do, but you're just changing the quality of your mind in that moment. Bring out that sense of well-being. It's good enough. I'm here, I'm doing this exam. It's all good. And then take a few deep breaths, let go of some of those stressful thoughts, and then have a second look at that exam paper. And you may find things start to come up in your mind. I've had that experience before. Even as a monk, I've done exams. I was talking to Bhante earlier about doing Abhidhamma. I did a few Abhidhamma exams. And Abhidhamma, they're really strict. They want exact, precise answers. If you get a word out of place, fail. It's a really good test of your equanimity and your patience. So you have to calm yourself, compose yourself, and then you do the exam. You still make some mistakes, but you put your mind in the best position to do that exam. Your memory works better when you're more calm. If you're at peace with yourself, you can concentrate longer, put more energy into that exam. That's the same for any subject, or job interviews are the same, driving lessons. One lady came to our monastery in Melbourne. She had failed her driving test 6 times. And she was about to give up. She was like, I'm never going to drive. I just can't do it. I just lose my cool in the driving test. I'm too nervous, too worried. I said, okay, try one more time. But this time you've got to meditate before you go. When you're at home, before you leave home to go to the driving test, do some meditation. Just bring your mind to that point where you feel just right, just calm. You're good enough. You're not too harsh on yourself. Because when you're nervous, you tend to be very self-critical. Right? I'm no good. I can't do this. You let go of those worries, the anxiety. Just go with the breathing. Do this for a while till you feel calm, and then you go off to your driving test. And she passed. Happy ending, good story. Maybe it doesn't always work like that, but in this case it did. Any kind of challenge you have, you're going to be much better off facing that challenge from a place where you just brought out mindfulness, calm yourself down, a little bit more in touch with your physical body, your mental state to deal with whatever the challenge is. And ideally, you do this before you've even got a problem. So like you go out in your car in the morning, do a little bit of mindfulness meditation as you sit in the seat, Breathe in, breathe out for a minute maybe, before you drive off. You haven't had a problem, and hopefully you won't have a problem driving, but if you do this, if you do have a problem and you encounter something along your way, you're more ready for it, aren't you? Or you get to work more relaxed. Or in the middle of your day, you're at work and you've got to do things on a computer or meet people or do this, do that, and you're worried that you're feeling stressed, maybe you're tired or there's some issues have come up. Do a bit of mindfulness meditation. If only for 1 minute, calm yourself, at your desk or wherever you are in your job. You can do this. Flying over here from Melbourne to Singapore, it's always the same. You get turbulence coming over Indonesia. They always ping the pinger. Pilot says, put your seatbelt on, get ready, it's turbulence, do the breathing, mindfulness, get yourself ready for whatever may eventuate. And luckily this time wasn't very serious, but there was turbulence. Life is turbulent, isn't it? There are times where you meet turbulence from other people or from your health or your job or even from the air when you're flying. How do you meet these turbulent situations? Well, practice some mindfulness, bring your mind to the present moment, let go of some of your worries, and you'll be in a better place to deal with it. And reflect, well, it's good enough. The pilot is good enough, the plane is good enough, we'll all get through it. You can't predict, but put yourself in a good state to face that problem. And don't forget to spread some metta to the pilots so that they don't have an argument. I don't know if you heard the news, there was a couple of pilots on another airline, they had an argument. Not good. When people argue, you need to have mindfulness, don't you? Whether it's other people or you're getting involved in an argument, you need to have the mindfulness to help bring your attention to the present moment, to let go. Maybe when you're very caught up in your opinion and someone disagrees with you, you need to have that mindfulness enough to say, maybe this isn't worth it. It's not worth arguing about this, fighting about this. Maybe we'll just let it go, let it be. Your mindfulness leads on to understanding and wisdom. Maybe the wisdom to see, this is the time I need to just accept something that is difficult to accept. This is the time to let go of something that's difficult to let go of. This is the time to step up and be more active and solve a problem, or get in there and solve a problem when I'd rather just not be bothered. It depends on the situation, but mindfulness gives you a certain agility of mind to look at things and see what needs to be done, and prepares you for whatever is coming up. And it's coming from a place of goodwill, so it's very close to metta and compassion, and it's a place of this quality of it's good enough. Because when you have mindfulness, your mind is not getting caught into judging yourself or others. It's just with the present moment, whatever's coming up. So you may have some negative thoughts, but as you become mindful, you're seeing that you're not getting angry because you've got negative thoughts or worried because of the situation. Just keeping your mind in the present moment, so then you can decide what you need to do next, perhaps. So many benefits come from practicing this path, whether you're a monk or you're a lay person, whether you can meditate a lot or a little, whether you've heard the Dhamma a lot or a little. All of this can bring you much benefit, and that's my conclusion after a lifetime practicing this. I haven't been disappointed. I'm only more inspired through practicing the Dhamma over the years, and not only for myself, but then seeing other people like yourself practice. And especially as the older you get, the Dhamma practice, I'd say, becomes even more valuable, because the older you get, your body becomes weaker, doesn't it? As you get older, you have more illness, you can do less physically, but mentally, maybe you're actually better off than when you're younger. You're smarter, wiser, more peaceful, perhaps, through the practice. really, if you keep practicing sincerely over the years, it'll only get better. You get more understanding, wiser. You get better at looking after your mind, letting go of the stress, the worries, the anger. You understand things better. So as your body sort of gets a bit weaker and is not so good as before, but your mind can actually improve and be better than before. So that's something very positive to think of in terms of practice. Maybe you can be happier the older you get. Because the way of the world is more like, the older you get, everything is not good. You get aches and pains and problems. Your eyes are no good, and this is no good, and that's no good. That's the more worldly way of looking at it. But if you practice Dhamma, maybe things get better because your mind is in a better space. That's the fruits of the practice. So, I've talked a bit about the Dhamma tonight, my practice, and given you some encouragement in your practice. So, maybe I'll end the talk there, and after this we can have some Q&A.
Ajahn, maybe I'll ask a question. So, after you spoke, I thought about how we could make differences around us if we had role models practicing what he spoke about. So I wonder if you have thoughts about how we can grow such role models. Otherwise, I feel that a lot is taking place in the private sphere, when we don't see others practice, there's less change in the world around us.
Well, I think perhaps it's an individual thing in the sense all of us have different capacities and different abilities. So Ajahn Chah used to say, even if no one else sees you, if you're practicing the Dhamma, not harming anybody, trying to cultivate mindfulness, you say doing the right thing, and even if nobody sees you, it's still good. It's still helping the world. But then, of course, if you have some extra energy and knowledge and skills and you can share it with others, well, all the better. So Ajahn Chah, my teacher, how did he start? He wandered around the forests of Thailand, practicing meditation, learning the Dhamma, and then he settled in a forest not far from his home village. But just him and a couple of monks living with absolutely no facilities, infrastructure, just camping in the forest. And I don't think he had a master plan to become a really famous Dhamma teacher, but because of the sincerity of his practice, the integrity of his practice, the energy of his practice, and then the wisdom and understanding he gained, little by little people joined him. Monks and novices, and later nuns, and then lay people started to come, and gradually he built a monastery, and quite a large monastery with many monks, many nuns. And then many branch monasteries started with his students going off and starting other monasteries. Until now there's hundreds of branch monasteries all over the world. So you can do it that way. You just start with yourself and this sincere wish to practice and to know the truth and practice what the Buddha taught. And then as you practice little by little, maybe you can influence some of the people around you. But not in a way that you want to convert everyone, or you have to go out and make everyone see the benefits of Dhamma like you can see and sort of force yourself onto others, but just through the power of good behavior and good practice, little by little other people are going to be affected. So you start with the people you're closest to. So if you have children or a partner, if you're trying to practice what the Buddha taught, practice generosity, live your life in a moral way, practice mindfulness, try to cultivate some deeper wisdom, as the Buddha taught, the people who live with you will notice that. They may follow you to a certain extent, they may follow you a lot, may not follow you much at all, but they should notice it. Because if you're living in a good way, the people who are closest to you, they pick up on that. They notice you don't bully them, you don't get angry with them, you don't exploit them or take advantage of them. There'll be people who notice that, from my experience, and they appreciate it. Like many people come to our monastery, and I think other monasteries are the same. They come and they say, I don't have much time to come to the monastery, once in a while I'll come, but just knowing that monks are there in the forest, practicing meditation, living very simply, practicing kindness, practicing mindfulness, is enough to keep me going, they say. So we shouldn't underestimate, people will often notice somebody who's doing good, but they may not join in, they may not follow, but they may notice it, and that already has a good effect. But of course, if you develop any skills in teaching or setting up Buddhist centers like this and helping to run them like you do, that's a great service to humanity. Many people can benefit from this place, and all the people who help run this place. And there's the Bantes, but there's also the committee and the members, the organizers. They're doing a great job for many people to come and benefit from this place over the years, listening to Dhamma, studying the Dhamma, and all the different activities. So this is a very good example of how you can use your time and energy to help other people. And you just have to be realistic. You can't expect the whole world to suddenly convert to Buddhism overnight. It'd be nice. It's not going to happen, is it? But in your world, your part of the world, you can do what you can. You just do what you can with your knowledge and your strength of mind, and with your friends and associates. You just do the best you can. And good things can happen. You have to trust in that. There's the law of karma at work every day, and that's one thing you study in Buddhism, isn't it? Good intention leads to good results. Good karma leads to good results. So if you trust in your good intention and you have a sincere wish to practice the Dhamma for yourself, learn the Dhamma, improve your own mind, and then give whatever else out to other people as well, and you trust in that good intention, there's going to be good results coming back. Sometimes slow, sometimes quick, but from what I can see, if people don't stop, they don't give up their practice, over time, especially over many years, good things come, good things happen. And Ajahn Chah is a very good example of that. He just started with nothing, just in a forest, a malaria-infested forest with snakes and tigers and nothing there. And he ended up influencing millions of people all over the world. And in a very natural, organic way, just through the purity of his practice, the wisdom of his teachings, which are just coming from his own understanding. We can all follow that example. And some people, are very advanced and mature in their practice. Maybe they can affect a lot of people. Some of us affect less. But it doesn't matter. It's not a competition. So we just do what we can to help others. But you have to help yourself as well. Yeah, it's a two-way thing.
Hello, Ajahn. Thank you very much for a very positive talk this evening. It really made me feel like, there's so much bad news in the world, but after hearing your talk, I sort of feel like positive and optimistic. My question is this: if we do not have a very good meditation practice daily, we go for retreats, 10 days, 11 days, we are very committed, but the rest of the time, if our meditation practice is not sort of like solid, do you think we can really practice Dharma well?
Yes, you can, but there'll be certain things you have to do, won't there? You can make a commitment to meditate every day. Get up a little bit earlier, or set aside some time in your day, even if you're busy, just 10 minutes a day, minimum. I'm sure you can find 10 minutes every day.
But let's say I have 5 minutes, 10 minutes, which I don't think
I didn't say 5 minutes, I said 10 minutes. You see, you're already reducing it down.
I mean, we know that 10 minutes isn't sufficient.
It is. That's the whole point. You build up from small beginnings, just like everything in life.
But let's say if it stays at 10 minutes every day, I'm trying to relate meditation practice to Dharma practice, Dharma living. And I know that if I meditated more, the mindfulness, the samadhi, maybe insight as well, I know my Dharma practice will be better. But let's say it just stays at 10 minutes a day, using my daily Dharma life will be not deep and maybe superficial.
Well, you got to start somewhere, and those 10 minutes, you have to be sincere in what you do. It's not just sit here and fill in the 10 minutes to keep the monk happy. Not that. I'm going to do 10 minutes of mindfulness practice, maybe with the breathing or any other technique, and I'm really going to commit and do it well for 10 minutes. The whole point of starting with 10 minutes is because if I say an hour or 2 hours or something, it's too hard and I haven't got the time. You start small, but we go for quality of intention, quality of discipline and practice. And ideally you pick a time where you can do that every day. That's why I say early morning is a good time when you have nothing else interrupting you, no other commitments. 10 minutes. You do that every day. And you'll find that has a follow-through or a knock-on effect in your day. If you get up in the morning, you do 10 minutes of mindfulness practice and you're sincere, you really try, you'll find for the rest of the day you're a little bit more mindful than you were before. And then sometimes you might feel ready to 15 minutes, 20 minutes. But also, you'll be noticing how through your day you're more mindful because of this 10 minutes you've done in the morning. But you have to do it regularly in order to see those benefits. You won't see after 1 day or 2 days, but if you do for 6 months, every day, 10 minutes. And that's a tiny amount of time. It's the amount of time you spend brushing your teeth or talking to your friend on the phone. You talk for hours, but you can surely find 10 minutes to do meditation. But you do it every day for, say, 6 months or a year, I guarantee your life will improve. Your level of overall mindfulness will improve. You'll be less willing to follow more the negative thoughts or unskillful behavior, speech patterns. You'll be doing less of that. You'll be more content, more patient in your life with some of the problems that come up. Even from 10 minutes, you can get many, many benefits. So start small, that's okay. You have to start somewhere. But not 5 minutes.
I want to ask you a question about the Brahma and Brahma Vihara. I think there are 4 elements. The last element is the equanimity. What can we exactly do to make sure we stay balanced when there's up and down in our life, daily life?
Well, the Buddha taught that we have to reflect on karma every day. I'm the owner of my karma, the heir to my karma, born of my karma, abide supported by my karma. whatever karma I do, good or evil or bad, I have to receive the fruits of that. And then everybody else is also the same. They also have to receive the fruits of their karma. This is directly leading to the quality of equanimity arising, because when you reflect on karma, you're reflecting these things that I'm experiencing, or these things that my loved one are experiencing. They have causes that are now coming back, bearing fruit. Everything I say and do is like a seed which will later bear fruit. And as I receive old karma, the fruits of my old karma, I have to be patient and equanimous with that, because the seeds are already planted, and I just have to accept that. But it works both ways. You receive the fruits of your good karma, and nobody complains about that, do they? It's only when it's bad karma we go, oh, why is this happening to me now? Why is there this problem? Why does this person give me so much trouble? Why did I fall ill now? Why do I have an accident now? When it's the bad karma giving its result, it's hard to be equanimous, but very valuable to reflect on karma at that moment. But when it's the good karma, we tend to go, oh yeah, I deserve that anyway, and yeah, that should have happened. Really, it's equal. Whether the good that comes up, it's good that comes up, or something unpleasant that comes up. In both situations, it's your karma. Just reflect on that, and this has come through a cause. And you can do it very quickly to help free your mind from a lot of this reacting to things with love and hate. Somebody insults you, it's like, oh, I must have insulted them before, or I've insulted somebody somewhere, so now this has come back to me, or this accident has happened, I didn't want it to happen, but it's happened. Must be some old karma ripening. It can become a way of reflecting on your situation, and shouldn't be the only reflection you have, but it's what brings you to equanimity, where you accept this is happening for a reason, for a cause, so I'll accept it, and particularly the unpleasant karma that comes back to us. But the pleasant as well. You reflect when things are going well and you're successful. You reflect when this has come through causes. It's not just magic. It's not just some kind of blessing from someone. There's causes for this as well. It makes you wiser, and that wisdom brings you equanimity. It doesn't make an accident or an illness any less painful, but it helps you to deal with it mentally, to understand what's going on and accept this karma that has come up here. Maybe it's just the karma of being a human being sometimes. Human beings are vulnerable to illness and injury and aches and pains. It's just normal for humans to experience this stuff. So part of the karma of being a human being is that you're exposed to unpleasant, painful experiences. The world is like that. It's not all easy. It's not always pleasant. But there is some pleasure and some success. And that's also, the Buddha said, reflect every day. I'm fortunate that I've been born as a human, that I still have my health, as long as you're not on your deathbed, that I've come in contact with the Dhamma teachings. The Dhamma is still available in the world, and I've met the Dhamma. This is my good fortune. He said, reflect on that. That's also equanimity, in the sense you're understanding the fruits of your past good karma have brought you to this point. You can practice Dhamma, listen to the Dhamma. It's your good fortune, but you've created those causes. And if you're not enlightened at the end of this life, you want this to continue, don't you? Next life. So that way you reflect, I must carry on practicing the Dhamma, giving importance to the Dhamma, because if I'm not finished with samsara this life yet, then next life I'm going to have to carry on practicing. If you throw away the Dhamma, and people do, they turn away from the Dhamma, they lose interest, they go the way of the world, or whatever, become depressed, sad, whatever. It's a shame, because it may be that they're actually taking away the chance to meet the Dhamma next time. So it's your good fortune, don't squander it. And when the bad fortune comes up, just accept this is karma, it's come from its whole, there's causes for this, so I'll just have to accept this. And it brings you equanimity.
And sometimes it's so painful that you want to seek assistance from external source.
Yeah.
Yeah. So is it wrong to seek external source assistance? So it's so painful. I mean,
No, it's not wrong, but do it in a balanced and a wise way. So, don't just go, Buddha, you got to help me. Buddha is not a God who's just going to sort of come down and wave away all your pain and trouble, is it? The way the Buddha helps us is he's given us these teachings which we now have to reflect on and bring up when we're facing that pain. You reflect, there's causes for this. And what did the Buddha say? How to deal with dukkha? Oh, well, establish mindfulness. Be patient, establish mindfulness, learn from that experience of pain. And maybe as you become more mindful of the very painful experience you're having, you can notice things about it. It arises, ceases. You can notice it's sometimes more intense, sometimes not. You can learn from that experience rather than just react to it with more suffering and attachment. You learn from it. And that's what the Buddha has given you. That's the external source. You take the Dhamma and use it and employ it to deal with the pain. You'll notice that in meditation. You have pain in meditation. You can sit there complaining and feeling sorry for yourself, or you can pray to the Buddha or the gods, help me, or you can establish mindfulness and observe pain as a feeling that arises, ceases. It's not self. And with that insight, maybe you can cope with that pain much better. That's how the Buddha helps us. You employ the Dhamma that he taught in your experience every day, in different experiences.
So I think we'll take last questions. I know there's a question out front.
Thank you for your talk. I have a suggestion. You said that 10 minutes of meditation can be good enough. But in those days where I don't find energy or motivation to do it, can you give me a suggestion to keep going with the consistency on it?
Well, sometimes you may have one or two additional meditation techniques for the times when you're really down. So maybe normally you use the breathing meditation, but then one day you sit down and you can't even find the breath. You're very stressed or worried or angry. You can't settle down. So maybe that day you have to do something different. It's okay sometimes to experiment or be flexible. So say you're very afraid, you need something that will help to calm you. So maybe you remember the Buddha and the kind of qualities that inspire you about the Buddha. For example, this is just an example. You remember the compassion of the Buddha, how the Buddha had so much patience. The Buddha went through so many problems and difficulties. You get some strength as you remember the Buddha. Or maybe some days you're very angry because something's happened in your day. It's made you very upset, very angry. So then you bring up the quality of loving kindness. And you have to keep putting your mind on the thought of kindness for yourself or other people. These are just examples. But you have one or two different meditations you can use depending on the situation, how you're feeling. And of course, maybe some days you just can't sit still, your mind is all over the place. Okay, maybe do some walking meditation. You can vary it, you're allowed to vary and to try different things. It's not wrong. And so sometimes you have to accept, I can't meditate today, but I'll do something that's still encouraging mindfulness or practicing kindness or compassion, and do some act of service for somebody else because I can't sit still. So I'll go and do something else that's still useful and maybe bringing up some good qualities at that time. So you can vary a little bit depending on the situation.